Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Patrick Kamm.
What's that? Oh, sunglasses, yes. Well, good afternoon, everybody. Very small, intimate group. So my name is Patrick Kamm. I work for International Games Technology. My job at IGT is I'm Vice President of Technology Operations, responsible for our global delivery portfolio. And by sheer luck or brilliance, I'm also responsible for resource management. The two are aligned because the portfolio is the demand on the organization, and resource management, of course, is the management of capacity. And that's really going to be what we're going to talk about today. So let me go down the agenda with you. I'm going to introduce IGT to you if you don't know who we are. I'll talk about our portfolio and our delivery record, which is not the objective of today's conversation. Rather, it's what happens when you've developed a methodology that's repeatable and really becomes table stakes. Where do you look to differentiate yourself as a business? And that would be in dropping your operating costs. We do that through optimizing demand capacity inside of the organization. So I'll take you through how we do that using CA PPM and all of the data we're able to pull from the tool to help us make quantifiable, data-driven decisions to run our business. Okay? So we're a global company, about 13,000 professionals and leaders worldwide. We're in over 100 countries. So I went through that quickly because I'm going to tell you exactly what we do in a moment here. So this is a glimpse of what we do. Right? We're a gaming company, IGT. Okay? We are the world's largest end-to-end gaming provider. Now, end-to-end can mean two things. End-to-end can mean that we deliver everything from the software to the hardware cabinets to all the terminals and everything that you see at a retailer location, all of the media, the tickets, pay slips, and all of that. We do that. But end-to-end for IGT is also all of the channels that we support. So we support casino. If you go out on the floors at any of the casinos here in Las Vegas, most parts of the world, Macau, where we're starting to make a presence, the majority of the machines you see there will say IGT at the bottom of them. Okay? We're in interactive as well. Interactive is huge in Europe, Latin America, South America. Okay? Not so much here in the United States yet, but we're getting a foothold in legislation. Sports betting, of course, is huge. All right? I don't think I need to go any further on that. Soccer or football, any sport, quite honestly. And lastly, lottery. Okay? Lottery is where this company got its start, a company called G-Tech, about 30 years ago in Providence, Rhode Island, which is where I'm from. With all of those channels, okay, to manage a portfolio, we needed a tool that could grow with us as we matured as a delivery organization. And we decided on CA PPM. It was the right choice. Okay? We brought the tool on in 2008. Okay? Initially because we had a separate tool that we used for time tracking, and we had this massive portfolio of demand, and the two weren't linked in any way. And it was very difficult to understand where we had capacity gaps. So we were saying yes to all of this work. We didn't always know that we had the capacity. And of course, in terms of rate and rate management, we're way off base and definitely not optimized. So in 2008, we brought the tool in. 2009, we spent most of that year stabilizing the system. 2010, we started to really customize what we had purchased in terms of reporting, different views on the system. I'll jump ahead to 2013, where we brought in Kappa. Kappa was important because when we brought in the CA tool and we started to do all of the customization, at the same time we were acquiring companies, acquiring different channels. And when you do that, you're bringing in different groups, differing levels of maturity in terms of a PMO and whether or not they have a tool. Kappa really did wonders for us in terms of allowing people to be brought in, onboarded, trained, really provided a reference tool for them as they were learning the system. We just continue to integrate additional groups in the company into the Clarity tool. Kappa has been wonderful, and we find ourselves where we are today in 2016. We've spent the year game planning what we're going to do for next year and really focused on migrating our reports from Crystal over to Jasper, because in our plan, as you'll see at the end of this presentation, we'll be moving to 15.x. So, am I going backwards? I wonder if I'm the first person to do that today. So here's our portfolio. The portfolio that we're responsible for is about 2.5 million hours a year, okay? It's anywhere from $500 million to $1 billion, okay? And it's roughly 500 projects throughout the year. Break that down on a quarterly basis and you'll understand how we track our financials, okay? Organizationally, we have about 850 full-time employees and 500 consultants, okay? So you can see that the 850, when I'm talking about being efficient and optimized, we've got to keep these people employed 100% of the time, okay? So understanding the demand component of the overall portfolio and having the capacity to meet those commitments was crucial and is a pillar to how we run our business today using CA PPM, okay? The balance or the gap between our full-time employees, our capacity full-time, and what we can deliver in the overall demand is about 1 million hours, and we manage that through consultants, okay? Variable staffing, also my responsibility. Now what's important on this little tab, okay, are the regions. As a global company, we have 14 different rate groups, okay? And when we come up with these rates, okay, because we have labor pools all around the world, okay, we come up with these rates a year in advance, okay? And we're able to do that by pulling in all of the demand, working with our account teams, okay, and validating that demand to substantiate where we have people as well as hiring practices, okay? So here's our record, okay? This is just a snapshot of the last 3 years. Our utilization for our full-time staff includes, and our consultants, our variable staff, is 103%. The 103%, okay, is measured against a total utilization target of 86%. And what I mean by that, am I attracting flies? So what I mean by that is we take our global workforce and we account for training, vacations, and things of that nature. So at 86%, we're fully staffed. They're fully utilized against the demand portfolio. Against our budget, our variance has been within 1% for the last 3 years, okay? So what does that tell us? When I look at this as an executive, at our portfolio, at our team's performance as a company, you know, I think we're hitting on all marks in terms of deliveries, okay? This has become a non-issue at this point. It used to be a big risk for us before we had global standards in place, before we had metrics and KPIs to determine risk ahead of time and measure and mitigate. But we're on time, we're on budget. We've got repeatable processes and global standards today. So what's next? How do we differentiate ourselves from the competition through the tools that we have? It's through optimization. Now, an important consideration in the lottery industry, in the gaming industry, is typically these contracts are very long-term, okay? And specifically in the lottery industry, there's really only 3 companies. So to differentiate yourself is hugely material. The contracts are 10 to 15 years, and if you miss out on a contract, you're gonna have a difficult time getting it back. You've lost 10 years right there. If you lock up a contract, you've got 10 to 15 years of forecastable revenue, okay? So you gotta get it right. So as a leader, where do you look to optimize at this point, okay? You've got the delivery down pat, you're on target, the variances are within 1% on millions of dollars in value on projects. Well, we look at 2 areas. There's capital costs, okay? Not my area, but I know we've got a very talented group in Reno that looks at suppliers worldwide, and we forward purchase, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm responsible for, again, is resource management. So we take a look at our capacity, okay, and what we can do in terms of global rate groups, blended rates, to bring down our overall operational cost. Now think about that for a second. A portfolio of 2.5 million hours. If you could knock $1 off your blended rate, you just saved $2.5 million. I'm going to show you some metrics later on that are very interesting. So that's our topic for this afternoon between me and the bars. Demand capacity planning. Okay? So let's take a look at this one, these tabs again. So demand are the projects that are inside of our portfolio. Generally, we can forecast the majority of those because contracts are coming to term, okay? But we rely on the Salesforce tool that our account managers use, and we rely a great deal on our teams out in the field doing program planning to forecast these investments. Our capacity are the people. As I touched on before, we've got 850 people, about 1.5 million hours of available capacity to deliver a portfolio on average of 2.5 million hours a year. So there's two approaches that you can take to this, cracking this egg. There's the tactical, okay? Tactical demand capacity planning, in my definition, is where you've got a very dynamic portfolio, okay, of several hundred projects in your forecast that could hit on the schedule that is in plan, or they slide. Things are always moving in this portfolio. Things that aren't planned are dropping in all the time, which makes it even more difficult. So that's more the tactical side of demand capacity planning. And then there's strategic. Again, I mentioned that we've got global rates. We've got 14 different rates around the globe. We're planning this a year in advance. And as you're budgeting, keep this in mind as well. As you're budgeting for projects and accounts, so this is an initial investment, and you're planning out an account plan when you're responding to an RFP, you're accounting for 10 to 15 years of foreign FX against these rates as well. So you've got to hedge your bets a little bit up front, but all the time you've got to be thinking about how to optimize these rates worldwide, okay? So a couple of views. So this is my perspective on how we manage rate management, demand capacity inside of the organization. These are snapshots of data that we pull from the Clarity PPM tool. Either they're direct snapshots that you're seeing on the screens, or they're exports that we'll put into Clarity or an Access database. But for the most part, I've looked to use snapshots direct from our tool in Clarity PPM. So this is what we do every year in July. Is we take a snapshot of the demand for the coming year, and we start to develop our demand for the coming year. We start to plan out our capacity, identifying gaps as quickly as we can so that we can forward plan any hiring. Okay, we identify gaps at the role level. Okay, so we measure the demand against the capacity. Okay, as early as July, the previous year, and we already start to see gaps in certain areas, certain roles, okay? On the screen, I think you can see that business analysts are a challenge for us. The business analysts in our life cycle, it's a pretty typical project delivery life cycle. Business analysts are up front, they're a front-loaded skill. They're directly customer-facing, sitting with the customers, understanding their business processes, and extracting their requirements and translating those requirements into technical docs along with our systems engineers. So right off the bat, we can see that we've got a challenge there in business analysts. So what we do is we peel the onion back a little bit further, okay? We start to look inside of the regions, okay, where those business analysts are planned against to identify where the gaps are, okay? So this is a strategic view, forward-looking. A more tactical view, I'm going to jump back and forth between strategic and tactical and share with you what the view is. This is a more tactical view, okay? Throughout the year, on a weekly basis, we look at the demand that's inside of the system, the requisitions, if you will, that are pending to be filled. And we identify gaps real time inside of the system. So you can see a snapshot there from Clarity. You can see the pie chart that we pull from that, an automated pie chart that's created that identifies the regions where the gaps are located, and another view of the same information there. Okay? So what we do when we identify these gaps in the portfolio is we extract the demand and we reflect that in a more visual project plan. Okay? Because we can see in the previous snapshot the roles, right, on the back panel there. We can see the roles and the gaps by quarter, by half year, by year. But it really doesn't help us with scenario planning until we put this into a more Gantt view so that we can sit with our internal customers. And what we do here, okay, is we've identified right off the bat in our unawarded, okay, still in plan but not yet awarded part of the portfolio, a number of projects, okay, with the little gold stars next to them, okay? And what that tells me is in Q3 and Q4 of next year, if we get all of these awards, we've got another challenge on our hand, okay? And this is just a macro view, okay? Q3 and Q4. So with that macro view and the different scenarios that we can pull, actually I'll jump back, what we start to do is we start to move things around inside of the portfolio. We sit with our customers to understand if the timetables that were originally planned in the forecast are movable or not. If they're fixed, then they're fixed. If we can move things around, for instance with the BAs, what we look to do, there he is again, we look to line up the projects so that the front-loaded skills are coming off a project as another project is starting up. So before we look to resource outside of the company, outside of our full-time staff, we look to make sure that we don't have the ability to move things around in the portfolio. Different scenarios. And this is an incredibly helpful tool for us when you're talking about global rate management. And speaking of global rate management, when things drop out of the sky and you don't have the ability to forward plan variable staffing, what comes into play more times than not is you're paying a lot for a last-second consultant. Okay, somebody who hasn't, and quite frankly, you're adding risk to your portfolio. Okay, you haven't had time to onboard this person. This person has had to drop in out of the, has had to parachute in and jump on a project. Typically a high cost for us. Okay, and that will have an impact on what potentially was costed as a low-cost number of hours. Okay. So here's a different look at our demand forecast. Okay, taken from Clarity. Okay, this is a look at our 14 rate groups and their demand per month of available capacity, productive capacity, and it all gets summed up into actuals. Okay. The utilization of the capacity that we have is a primary driver to achieving the rate. If we over forecast and we have people sitting on the bench, the rate that we've established 6-7 months in advance and have gone into business plans for decade-long contracts is severely impacted. Again, think about the number of hours times $1 if you're off by $1. Okay? So what we've got here is we've taken the total labor pool that we have, and we've broken it down into high-cost, low-cost labor pools. Okay? And you can see how the percentages break down. I don't know how confidential this information is. I hope it's not that confidential. It shouldn't be. We're pretty transparent in how we do our business. But if anything, I would think that if we've got customers out there, they're going to have a great deal of confidence in the level to which we manage our business. Okay? So this is just an example of the high-cost, low-cost labor pool distribution that we have across the globe. This is the tactical view. And here's the level. Now this is where the number gets very interesting. Okay? This is the level to which we manage the rate. Okay? You can see a couple of different bubbles there. There's an as costed. Okay? So this is the total portfolio, the capital, and the labor. I've pulled the capital out, but the labor costs here. You can see when these are costed, we costed the CY16 portfolio blended rate at just about $70. When we get a contract award, okay, and we upsell additional items, maybe there are products that are developed or sustained by a higher cost labor pool, the rate went up slightly. When we did the gap analysis, okay, against what was originally costed and then accounting for the stuff that was negotiated in, we saw that the rate dropped to $69 and a dime for the year. And then we start looking at the current forecast and actuals in Rev 10. So this was taken back in September, October. And what you can see is, even from the negotiated number, we dropped to 66.80, okay, in terms of actuals, in terms of the forecast. The actuals, however, are $61.70. So think about that for a minute. I don't know if this is good or bad. We forecasted on an annual basis, right, for this year, a blended rate against 2.5 million hours of almost $70. Through continuous rate management, we were able to drop that rate down to $61.70. Now, it's not a straight line math against 2.5 million hours that we've saved, $8. I'd get fired if that were the case. But this is an example of highly efficient rate management, okay? What I'm looking at here as a leader when this report gets pulled, if you assume for a moment that the portfolio is 2 million hours, okay? And we're able to go from an as costed down to, let's say, the 66, which is the current forecast, okay? Against 2 million hours, that's roughly $2, right? $2 and some change. 2 million hours for a quarter, it's $500,000, it's $1 million. So we've saved $1 million in the quarter, right? $4 million over the year. This type of forecasting allows us to work with our global CFO to adjust numbers to the street, okay? And I have to say a big part of clarity, PPM for us and around demand capacity planning is very much tied to our SOX compliance. Clarity, PPM, the level to which we use clarity to track time, both in terms of actuals and forecasts, is a big component of our SOX audits. And because of the way the tool is set up and the level of granularity that we can present under audit, the audits are pretty smooth for us. Not painful, I should say. So that was the tactical view. The strategic view, more my perspective on this is our global distribution of the high-cost, low-cost labor pools. Black, you're in the black. Red are the high cost, okay? Looking at the high-cost labor pools, okay, the objective for us is to move work into a low-cost labor pool as much as we can, okay, and lower the overall blended rate. That will differentiate us from the customers where we've already differentiated ourselves in terms of the ability to deliver on time, on budget. Now we're coming in at a lower cost as well, okay? So this is our objective. The challenge, however, if you look at the distribution of the high-cost labor pools, is they're very low percentage in some cases. Those would be customers that require on-site staff. For instance, let me pull one out of the air, Singapore. Singapore is a high-cost labor pool. We've got a couple of people there. There's not a great deal we can do about that, okay? But in North America, we've also got product R&D. These are the bleeding edge guys. These are the expensive engineers that have the latest technology, okay? So as much as we want to move the needle, sometimes we're a little bit handcuffed in our ability to do so. Other considerations on the strategic side of global rate management. Low attrition. It's fantastic. Everybody wants to stay with the company. I think our average years of service, it's at least 7+ worldwide. In the technology organization, it's over 10. Okay, it's a fantastic company to work for. It's an exciting industry. The product of low attrition, of course, is that folks have been on the books for a long time. They've gotten raises every year. They get bonuses. It's tough to fight that. Okay, Plus, they've got proprietary knowledge of the industry, how we deliver projects, how we service our customers, et cetera. Another consideration are contractual requirements. Minimum staffing requirements, I mentioned Singapore. We've got high SLAs, okay? When we miss service level agreements, these things are measured in hundreds of thousands of dollars per minute. If you think about in January when we had the 100, or what was it? I forget what the total mega jackpot was. But the number of transactions that were going through the systems per minute was astronomical. I forget, I want to say Florida had the highest number per minute. I don't recall what the number was. But if the system had gone down, okay, the penalties, again, would have been measured in hundreds of thousands, would have easily crested millions. In some cases, we have thresholds. In other cases, we don't. But those SLAs, that guarantee of service, also requires that we have a rather high-cost labor pool in some areas. And then, of course, there's the fact that we've got these long-term contracts, 10 years, 15 years. When we first install, a lot of times it's bleeding-edge technology. So we've got high-cost labor installing these products. The products have been there for 10 or 15 years, and by the time the products come end of life, they're not end of life for us because there was nothing in the contract to upgrade the system. So we have to retain folks with knowledge that isn't in high demand anymore. So I mean, you get both sides of the pendulum. Skills that are not in high demand the highest price when you need them. On the bleeding edge side, we've got the highest demand for the skills. These people command the highest salaries as well. So we've got both ends of the spectrum. So that's my view on Clarity PPM, how I use the tool to manage demand capacity on a tactical and a strategic level at IGT. And you saw some of the metrics, some of the benefits, some of the forward-looking methods that we use in terms of measuring capacity against demand and making sure that we're balanced. So what does the future hold for us at IGT with CA PPM? Well, we will be moving away from Microsoft Project. To be honest with you, the journey with CA PPM has been pretty smooth. It's not without its bumps, but we've got a very good team that supports this tool on a daily basis, works with our project managers inside the PMO around educating them, building custom reports, taking in the requirements and the demands of the organization, and really building a great tool. The biggest headache we've got is the interface with Microsoft Project. We were a relatively mature organization back in 2008, but Microsoft Project, it's the industry, it's the tool. It's the best practice tool for project management. What we've decided to do is we're going to take that monkey off our back. We're going to migrate from Microsoft Project in the middle of the 500 project portfolio next year. We're going to change the engines on the plane while we're flying it, and we're going to move to Open Workbench. Now, it will come with its challenges, but having seen the demonstrations on Open Workbench, talked to other customers that have made the migration, we're bullish about what it's going to take to get it done. We're bullish about the benefits, and we're optimistic about the challenges, but we're planning ahead. I mean, there will be challenges, certainly. It's a major behavioral change for the organization. We're going to do that first. We're going to allow the organization to settle down, and then we're going to migrate from 14.2 to 15.1 or 15.2. Now, we've been talking a lot with CA about the benefits of 15.1 and 15.2. Of course, anytime you introduce new systems into an organization, more times than not, there's organ rejection. It's behavioral change. Folks are used to what they're doing, and let's be honest. I mentioned our portfolio and the projects. When I say end to end, the scope of these projects is everything from facilities to terminals to training to infrastructure, data centers, you name it. It's end to end. Okay. The framework and the tools that the project managers use today, they may not necessarily love, but it's the tool that they're very comfortable with. When we move to 15.1 or 15.2, one of the greatest selling benefits that we have today is the fact that you've got this classic view and you can switch to the new GUI user interfaces, the more friendly views. The other benefits come around these drag and drop functionality that 15.1 and 2 promise. As an executive, I'm looking very much forward to building super customized dashboards that I can share with our executives. Today, I send dashboards to our executives. In the future, I want my executives to have these dashboards on their desk at a single click, okay? Real-time reporting so that they can be aware of what's happening inside the portfolio, where the risks are, et cetera. Remember, the portfolio are investments for us. These aren't I'm not locked down and talking about internal projects. I'm talking about customer-facing, billion-dollar portfolio. And for our CFO, the other boards of directors, the CEO, to be able to click and see a dashboard would be great. And beyond CY17, 2017, we're looking at agile methodologies. We've got some very technically astute customers out there, primarily in Europe, Canada. I'm not saying that we don't have technically astute customers in the US, but they're not demanding agile, okay? The big conversion projects that we kick these contracts off with may not fit agile, but when you're talking about 10, 15 years of service deliveries, new functionality, it's a collaborative roadmap that you develop with your customers. And agile, okay, to me, is a better fit than the classic waterfall that we employ today on the big projects. And today, frankly, in the services world. So we're exploring with CA and the recent acquisition of Rally, what we can do in that space. And of course, ease of reporting, as I had mentioned, continued ease of reporting, and automation. So I thank everybody for your time this afternoon between me and the bar. I didn't need the whole 45 minutes. Being from the Northeast, I'm told I speak very quickly. But I gave you kind of an executive's perspective on this, okay? I have folks from my team here. We can get more into the nuts and bolts. But I hope that my presentation demonstrated to you what CA PPM can do for you in both a tactical perspective around rate management and demand capacity planning, which is so important. A lot of times people come to me and they want to build a world-class PMO. And they say, what do I need to do? What's so important about, what should I focus on? And I tell them, I say, project management is project management. A delivery life cycle is pretty common, okay? You get the requirements, you translate them into something that's buildable, you build it, you test it, you deliver it, right? To me, what's more important is demand capacity, okay? Running a large organization, making recommendations to the executives around investment, hiring staff, which I take personally. I have an incredible loyalty to our company and to the employees and their families. Without the ability to understand your capacity, I don't know how you can accept work, okay? Demand. Because there's no way you can make the commitment to take on the demand if you don't know you can deliver it, okay? And until we got CA, pre-2008, we were in that boat. We were taking on more and more work. Our cost rate, our blended rate, now, I won't say what it is, but it was significantly higher than it is today, significantly. And through use of the tool, maturing of the organization, and really getting down into the more granular levels of what you can do inside of this great tool, has really put us in a position where we're in continuous optimization. So I thank you again for your time today. If there's any questions, please grab me at one of the bars. We don't have a microphone up here to take questions, so just grab me one-on-one, and I'll be around this area for the next couple of hours. Thanks, everybody.